I'm currently in Texas interviewing every single major university across Texas. So before TikTok is canceled, follow our Instagram because you're not gonna win. I promise you're not gonna win this. Home of the second BYU, home of rules that don't allow queer people to date, home of rules that perpetuate inequality. So, well, let's jump into it because I'm here to put Baylor on a little map. So, anyways, my first question is, what pronouns do you use?
She, her.
Okay, yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah,
don't
no.
even use pronouns.
Okay.
She, her.
Okay.
He, him.
I use he, him.
He, him.
What about you?
She, her. She, her.
Well, I'm a guy.
Okay.
Okay. He. Okay.
She, her.
She, her. She, her.
She, her. I use she, her.
He, him.
She, her.
Yeah.
She, her. She, her.
Would you consider yourself to be more pro-choice or pro-life?
I would consider myself to be more pro-choice.
Okay. Can I ask you why?
I am honestly not a big fan of abortion. I do think it is sad.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, I think that there are just so many things that can go wrong during a pregnancy with a woman's health that can really endanger her health that I think is just more important to leave the decision up to the doctor and to the woman.
Yeah.
That's a great question. I'm actually not sure.
Okay. Yeah.
But I don't, disagree with either.
Yeah.
I don't know, though.
Yeah,
I'm not sure.
What are your thoughts on it, if you don't mind me asking?
I don't know. I see different sides.
Yeah.
I see both sides, and I don't want to argue against anyone else's experience.
Yeah. Right.
So, yeah, I think just, keep an open mind, because everyone has different experiences.
I'd say more pro-life, probably.
Yeah. What are your thoughts on it?
I don't know. I think everyone's entitled to their own opinions.
Okay.
But I also think we all should value the gift of life as well.
Would you consider yourself to be a feminist?
Not really.
Okay.
Kind of neutral.
Why talk to me about your thoughts about it.
I don't know. I think everyone has rights, and I think women have rights too, but men do too. So.
Yeah.
Not by the modern definition, but in saying that I believe in equal rights with women, yes, I do.
Sure. In that I support the women in my life and in the world.
I mean, I wouldn't say feminist in the sense of what people now say, use the word feminist, but I love women and I think that women should have rights and all of that stuff, but just not how people think nowadays, I guess.
In general, yes.
Okay.
Primarily as regarding benefits that would extend to men should equally extend to women.
You're not a cuck if you're a feminist. That's what they say in my comment section, that if you're a feminist, you're a cuck. If you believe in the idea of white privilege, you're a cuck. But here's the reality. Women are paid significantly less than men. Here's the reality. 30 years ago, a woman couldn't get a credit card without her husband. Here's the reality. In the 1700s, if you're a woman and you ran away from home, you would have been murdered by your husband because you were his property and you didn't have the ability to live freely. So being a feminist is not being a cuck, it's understanding history, it's understanding reality, it's understanding that the past of what we've been through, the past of constant oppression of women, putting women into spaces that they didn't want to be regardless, is oppression. And we have to understand that the past seeps into the present, and that's why I'm a feminist. Because the ideologies that are sexist, the ideologies that are inherently oppressive towards women, that women don't work as hard, that women are not, as smart or as educated, etc., they're flawed ways of thinking. So yeah, I'm gonna press you. Be a feminist, because if you're not a feminist, maybe you're the cuck.
Do you support marriage equality or gay marriage?
I mean, I don't not support it, but I'm not gonna I don't want to ban that same-sex marriage, but it's not something that I think about often, I guess.
From a laissez-faire perspective.
Okay. Gotcha.
In a sense, I don't think I define marriage in a way that would probably support that view of it.
I do support marriage equality. I don't believe it's correct, but I would support it. You should be allowed to. I don't think it's the best thing, but that's my opinion.
Right.
I am a Christian, so I don't support it, but I'm not gonna not be kind to someone who is in a gay marriage.
I'm gonna show you a picture. And I just want you to tell me what you see.
All right. I see like an 18th century maybe little girl in a dress sitting on what looks to be a hay bale.
A girl.
A little girl.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like a little girl in a photo shoot or something?
Yeah.
That was actually President FDR.
Really?
Right, a guy. That was actually President FDR.
Okay.
When he was a baby. That was actually President FDR, the man from the 1940s. And my question is, right, like, that was a little boy in a dress with bangs. Okay. And if gender seems to be constantly changing, do you think gender is a construct? Is it made up?
I don't know. I think God made male and female.
I'd have to agree, yeah. I think,
But like it's changing, obviously.
I think that norms have changed with like thinking about like how people grew up and like I don't know how to word this. Like obviously the times are different and so you wore different things and you dressed different ways and I think that's evolved now and like I feel like for the most part I'm a very like feminine person. I give feminine qualities and I think that that's the norm now these days. So.
Okay. If President FDR was the man of all men, right? And it seems as if what classifies a man is changing since he had a dress and bangs. Is gender then a construct? Is it made up?
Is gender made up? No, it's not. The Lord made man and woman, and it clearly states that in the Bible.
Are the things that identify man and woman made up? Like dresses and long hair?
I don't think so.
I do not believe that.
Okay.
I believe the way we portray genders can change. For example, back then it was common to dress babies, like even male babies in dresses. That doesn't mean that gender itself is changing, and it doesn't mean that it's a social construct. It just means that our perception of it is changing.
And so if our perception of it is changing, why do you think there is so much like backlash towards men now that might wear dresses or paint their nails or identify with what we commonly know as like women perceptions?
Yeah, so that depends on their reason behind it. Like painting nails, I've noticed has become a common more thing that's becoming more socially acceptable for a man to do. But right now, something like wearing a dress, that's the intention of portraying themselves as a woman, which isn't quite the same thing.
What if they just want to wear it as a man, like Harry Styles? He wears dresses.
Then that's different. That's challenging the social norm, which can be a good or bad thing. In my opinion, it's not great, but if it's something you want to do, then yeah, if you have good intentions behind it, then go ahead.
Gotcha. Do you think that if gender is then changing, do you think gender is a construct?
Ooh. Well, I am Christian, I do believe, and follow the Bible, so I do think I am not exactly for transgender, but I'm not against it either. Like I said, like it really doesn't affect my life. I'm not going to support it, but if that's what you want to do with your life and don't reflect it onto me, then that's totally okay. I won't reflect my beliefs onto you. I believe what I believe and you believe what you believe, and that's totally okay. We're allowed to have different opinions. I think that's like what makes America great, right? We're allowed to free think, and yeah.
I think the idea that you can be feminine or more masculine is pretty constructual throughout human history. You know, there are people today that would think it's more feminine to wear earrings if you're a male. Right. But I know tons of guys that wear earrings, and I don't think there's anything to do with your gender reality. I think there's another category that's actually a third way in between the whole sex and gender debate that I mean, I'm not an expert on it. I don't have the term that I'm looking for.
Almost.
Yeah, maybe something with expression that expresses those things, because I know even myself, aspects of my own life that are more feminine than masculine, that what culture should say I am or not. So I'm all about people expressing who they really are. And honestly, I think a lot of the debate is it's been captured and dominated by cultural views of what gender and sex are, and people living into those scripts and narratives more than actually being freed up to do what they. So I don't think any legislation is going to make people feel free to express themselves, nor do I think rules imposed on them is going to solve that.
Do you think faith leaders or drag queens would be more of a danger to kids?
I don't think either, honestly. I think there's certain people dangerous to kids and certain people not, and they shouldn't be based on who they associate with.
I don't really want to answer that because I don't think it's good to generalize.
Okay.
Because I certainly think that there's, like, not great people everywhere, but I don't think it's good to say that one type of person is a danger to children. I don't think either of those types of people are necessarily a danger to children.
Okay.
Me personally, I'm Christian,
Yeah.
so I do have faith.
Yeah.
So I guess my answer would be drag queens, but I don't want to
Yeah.
associate
Yeah.
them with that, but
Yeah.
I don't know.
Faith leaders are 8 times more likely to assault a child than drag queens. So my question is, why is there so much focus on drag queens and trans people? There's so much anti-trans, anti-drag rhetoric, despite the fact that they're a safe place. Trans people, queer people, drag queens are a safe place. All they're trying to do is exist safely. However, when we flip it on its head, there's not anti-rhetoric to faith leaders, not from the same conservative politicians who are so set out to protect children. If they're so set out to protect children, then why are there not more boundaries and standards for faith leaders? Why are faith leaders still so likely to assault children? And I think here's the problem. Religion is blinding people. We've seen it throughout all of history that religion has been used to perpetuate violence. And we're seeing that today. Religion is using to perpetuate violence by faith leaders onto children, and that same violence, that same rhetoric is then put on to drag queens and trans people.
My next question is, do you think that men should paint their fingernails?
If they want to, I don't really care. I mean, I probably wouldn't want my boyfriend or my dad or anyone to do that, but honestly, it doesn't really affect my life, so I don't really care.
I think that's probably cultural.
Okay.
And it's a funny moment when a guy who wouldn't usually paint his nails lets a girl paint his nails, because it's like you're challenging the stereotype.
I don't care. I don't have a preference at all.
Okay, cool.
If they do it, great. If they don't,
Yeah.
I don't even notice that. So.
Or how do you feel about it? I know I'm jumping around. I told you societal stuff.
I'm just gonna say my personal opinion is I'm just not a big fan of guys painting their fingernails.
Okay.
Then again, I'm not a big fan of taking a lot of time to get myself ready in the first place. Adding a different layer on top of it, it's just I'm not. So yeah.
I think it's really up to y'all. Pretty much, if you have a creative outlet and it's painting your fingernails, that's great. Go for it.
What about you? What do you think?
It doesn't really matter to me. I mean, whatever makes you happy, I guess.
Do y'all think that sexuality should be taught in schools? Like gender and sexuality, the topic. What do y'all think?
I don't think so. I think eventually, even by omission, you're teaching something. So that's tough, right? Because by not saying something, you're coming down on one thing or another. And so that's tough. I was homeschooled, and I really appreciated that because I believe what my parents taught me was true. And so what they taught me about sexuality is true. And it's led to, I feel really happy and really content with what I believe, and it's led to a happy life.
Talking about what that is?
Yeah, very, very traditional, very Christian. I love Jesus. And so biblical ideas of sexuality, of marriage are what my family taught me.
I would definitely say no, because in elementary school, I didn't even like boys. I thought they were gross, And so that wasn't something I think that I needed to be exposed to at that age. But then as you grow up and as you develop more, then you seek that out on your own. And I think as you mature, those are the time to have more mature conversations. But at that level, I wasn't even interested in what boys were doing. So for that to be taught in school, I just don't think it's the right time. I think it's an important topic that could be talked about, but not at that age level, so young, if that makes sense.
Why do y'all think we should expose young children to heteronormative values and these traditional values, but not values of an expansive idea of sexuality and gender? Why do you think children should be allowed to understand heteronormative values and not these other ones that seem alternative but still important?
Speaking from my own experience, I'm really, really thankful that my parents taught me traditional values. When you're young, you don't have the capacity to handle those concepts. You're thinking boys are gross, girls are gross. You're not thinking about that. And so I think how I've been raised was really, really healthy. And so if it's potentially unhealthy, right, which I think it is personally, then that's not something you want to risk on a young mind, right? something that could like really potentially hurt how they grow.
I think that's like an individual family unit question of like if you're a lesbian couple or a gay couple and those are the values that you want to instill in your kids, I think that's your choice and you have the option to do that. But to kind of force those values on like a society level and think that all parents want their children exposed to that, I don't think that should be like a education or topic. It should just come down to the family. And like for his family, they wanted to expose him to, you know, the God-fearing beliefs that marriage is between a man and a woman, and that's what they chose. And I think everyone should have the opportunity to choose what they want for their kids.
And that's one of those kind of almost like I personally think that that once you go back to the previous question, I believe that most of that really should come from the family. Okay. Your parents know you better than anybody else.
What if families aren't teaching it though?
Yeah, I tell you that, and circle back. Why? Why are they not teaching it? Right? Where did they get that from? Why? First of all, as a daddy of all daughters, I don't want their first lesson to be in the 6th grade on the playground. Okay, because you're getting the opinion of a 6th grader or a 7th grader. You're right. So I feel like no sooner than high school. I think that at some point you're just kind of grasping some of the terms, what your body's doing and stuff like that. So kind of like, for example, why would I teach driver's ed to a 2nd grader? Okay.
But don't you think, like, I mean, if people are born gay, people are born whatever way they identify sexually, if people are having very real feelings, or if people are omitted the opportunity to learn about people who definitely exist in the world, are we doing a injustice or a disservice by eliminating their idea of what is real and what is okay? Because I think what's happening is people don't get taught about queerness or sexuality, but then they don't know it exists, right?
I tell you, and that's something I can't, standing on this campus, really address. Sure. And I really have to kind of step away from that just professional reasons.
No, understood. So I've been asking people if sexuality should be taught in schools, and everybody's saying that we shouldn't teach them because it's the family who should teach them, and we know families aren't teaching them, but they're grateful that their families taught them this heteronormative, God-fearing, traditional marriage-esque thing. And so, but they're saying that it's too early to teach kids sexuality if it's queerness, but they're being taught heteronormative values. So it's not about the age of the child because they're being taught the same things on the flip side. What it is that they disagree about queer people existing. But the problem is when you don't teach children about queer people existing, that's what creates the discrimination in your mind, because you don't understand why would they do that? Why do they exist? If that's against God and it's against this heteronormative value, why are they here? And here's the problem. A lack of education creates ignorance. Ignorance creates discrimination, and that's what's happening in these Christian values, these Christian places, is you don't know. And if you don't know, that ignorance is going to persist and the discrimination is going to even be furthered. Nobody wants to tell their kids that being gay is real because they're scared that their kid is going to be gay. And I think that is the problem in itself.
Every person has a different upbringing, and every person's upbringing translates to what they believe in. My upbringing as a black person in Texas translated to me being an activist and going as a journalism, but not everybody's experience is the same. If you're not willing to understand so that somebody's upbringing is different and that is evident to their ideology, then we'll never get past any ideological difference or issue. Because what we have to realize is that just because the ideology is different, it doesn't mean it's not set in rationale. It might be illogical. It doesn't mean it's irrational, which is why we have a difficult communicating the message that we're trying to transpose, which is equality and equity. I truly believe that every person has a sense of goodness and kindness in them. If you connect to that sense of goodness and kindness, then I think we can connect to a sense of greater peace and a greater unity. And maybe that's an idealistic hope dream, but fuck, if we're not gonna be idealistic and hopeful, then I don't know, I'm not gonna do this world without it, so that's all I got. I don't know, stop judging upbringings. Just talk in a way that people hear you, because people have goodness. People want to be good. Connect to that.
Do you think that systemic racism exists?
Absolutely, but I also think that it goes both ways.
Okay, talk to me about it.
Sure. I think that every race is racist, and I think that everyone has their biases, and that's totally fine as long as we treat others with love and respect, and that's okay. But yeah, I definitely think I do think it exists. Yeah.
Sure.
Okay.
Sure. I think it's talked about as like a big ol' boogeyman, but I think it does end up coming down to individuals within a system.
Okay.
Like, I think the system has improved, right? But like ultimately, if there's a teacher within a system that is racist, then you could say that's systemic racism. But I think it's helpful to think about individuals.
Yeah, I don't think we're enough generations down yet from when segregation actually happened. So it takes time for system to change. So I think there is, systemic racism, but like he was saying, it does come down to the individual, and we have the power to change it. So it takes each of us doing our part, and I think generally the systems have gotten a lot better. So not as bad as it once was, but
for me, I think it's like really how much like you're brought up and like where you live. I feel racism can be like anywhere, not just like in small towns or big towns. I feel like racism it's a big problem in our country, in all honesty, but love God, love others, that's what I say, Yeah.
What do you think?
Yeah, I kind of agree with that.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't really know much about the topic to speak on it, so yeah.
Systemic racism.
Yes.
I think, yeah, absolutely, yeah. Well, I think that's not a regional thing. I think that since the dawn of time, racism has existed in some form or another.
Yeah.
And it crosses every boundary, every color, every economic class, up and down. So I think what the pause in that is, I don't think it's something new.
Yes.
And now, having said that, I think that it's being probably talked about more, but nothing, the old expression, nothing new under the sun.
Yes.
I'm sure people had a voice, and 2,000 years ago when the Jewish people were enslaved to the Egyptians, they would have a different answer to that on one side of that, but probably would echo a lot of what we're hearing right now as well.
So white families hold 80% of all wealth in the United States, and black families hold 4.7%. How do we go about that? Like, how do we have to change the system wholly, or what do we do to curb these very large effects that seem to not be changing?
Yeah, I mean, huge like question, because right. So Jim Crow, no bueno.
No bueno for sure.
Holding people down.
Yes.
Right, and then there's also the social capital that people have over time, right?
Yeah.
And then there's the like, for example, like a first generation student can't ask their mom like, hey, like, how should I handle this like deal? I mean, they could, and I'm sure their mom has wisdom for them, but like not firsthand experience. And so similarly, like if people have been held down, as groups, then also there's like, even if the system improves, there's like not the social capital of like, oh yeah, I've been in that building, I can connect you with those people. So like, I think our systems have improved greatly, right? But there's like, it's a kind of like gray area. It's like, well, yeah, like, how do we need to put people in those positions? It's a big question.
I think it would be access to education, because a lot of that education maybe stays in white families. But I think with social media now, so many people have access to the knowledge that was maybe once contained within the white population, which maybe that was why they contained 80% of the wealth. So I think that's how you improve it, is you get people more exposure, and then they have the opportunity to take advantages of those opportunities if they choose.
I think the way we can fix that, like I said, if I could say, here's how we're going to fix it, I'd be a lot richer person right now. So I think that we need, as a nation, to reprioritize what is important as far as what would help bridge that gap. Okay. What are those things? Then we can dive into, does that mean returning more to basic education versus some of these tangent thoughts out there? So I would look right now and say, I think the best way is, as a society, black, white, Hispanic, get together and say, okay, what's important? What ingredients are the success of anybody succeeding? And if we've drifted away from that as a society, it's probably only going to hurt those that were at a disadvantage in the first place. It's probably going to help those people that were at advantage in the first place. Okay? Yep. So good ideas get better and will help bridge that. Bad ideas make situations worse, right? So why not get back to the basic of what is a successful formula to anyone? Okay? What does that look like? Get back to that, and I think if we shed some of the white noise, ironic, some of the white noise surrounding that, we can get back to it.
Gotcha.
Like I said, like for example, like I've traveled the world, and one thing I've learned is people really have some basic stuff that they want to wake up safe. They want their kids to do better or be in a safe situation. If you kind of look around the world, that's the kind of basics. I've seen tighter families in impoverished worlds than I've seen broken families in affluent worlds. You know, so if you go to an affluent part of anywhere in the world, you'll see dysfunction. And sometimes you'll go to some place that you don't even know where they're getting their drinking water, and you're going to see a family structure that's intact. So now to say that those type of basics is what I would.
In this last presidential election, if you did vote, who did you vote for?
I voted for Donald Trump.
Okay. Can I ask you why?
I honestly, I don't like him as a person, but I do think financially and everything he did stuff for our country. I don't know, I thought he was a better option.
If I did vote, who did I vote for? I'd rather not say, just to not put my poo pews out there.
I understand.
But yeah, I don't know.
I voted for Trump.
Okay. Can I ask you why?
Yeah, it wasn't I didn't really like that to be the choice, but I do think he's going to be a strong leader, especially where our country is heading right now.
Are you Christian? I'm guessing.
Yes, I am
Baylor.
a Christian.
Okay. As a Christian, right, does it bother you that Trump, as a convicted rapist, is going to be the president?
I was honestly not aware that he is a convicted rapist.
Yeah.
That is a little concerning.
Yeah.
There are a lot of problems with him, and he's not the ideal choice at all. I do think he will be a strong leader, though.
Okay.
I voted for Harris.
Okay. Can I ask you why?
I'm just more liberal in general. But I also think that things that are very important to me are like expanding options for like healthcare and giving more opportunities to people who are like low income.
Yeah, for sure.
And stuff like that.
I voted for Trump.
Okay. Can I ask you why? Like, what was the number one reason?
Honestly, both weren't great options in my opinion, and I just thought that Trump would do a better job than Kamala.
So unfortunately, I'm an out-of-state student, so I wasn't able to vote. But I would have voted for Trump.
Okay. Can I ask you, like, just what would be the number one reason that you would have voted for?
Sure. Well, I feel like during the Biden-Harris election, I was able to really see like America change, and like I said, like my Christian values reflect on who I would vote for, and I do feel like Trump has like the most similar ideals, but also I don't agree with January 6th at all, and I don't think that the people who worship him have the right mindset. I think that we shouldn't trust in man and we should just trust in God, of course. But I'm excited to see what he does and see how the Republican Party changes. I would probably identify myself as more conservative than liberal, but also I'm from a liberal state, come to a conservative state. I go to a Christian school, but a lot of my family is liberal, so I've been able to really see both sides of the spectrum, and I do think it's important to hear both sides out. So we'll see if he delivers on his promises. I don't think he's exactly the smartest person, but I do think he was the right choice for the country at this time.
As a Christian, right?
Yeah.
Does it bother you that, Trump as the next president is a convicted rapist?
Absolutely. Like as a female myself, and hearing about all the convictions, I do think that he definitely has some self-reflecting to do. But yeah, I don't know. Like I said, I do think he was the right choice. Do I think he's a great person? Probably not, but I still do think that he was the right choice for our country right now.
I know it's frowned upon to be a one-issue voter.
Okay.
But the issue that I chose to vote on was important enough to me that it kind of trumped a lot of things, and so I voted for Trump. That's fine.
That's a pun, yeah.
I think there's a lot of foreign policy that I don't know if Trump's doing a good job. So it's a big complicated. But I voted for Trump because of abortion.
I voted for Trump too.
Okay. What was your number one policy? If you had one at least.
Foreign policy, yes. Also, just he seemed really pro-family with everything that he was talking about. And I like how much he cares about America and just how he was willing to put his foot down, and he's for working class. And the taxes. This past semester, I was in a tax class, so we were breaking down all the tax policies from Kamala and Trump and what they would do to everyday Americans. And so his no tips for waitresses or getting rid of taxes for unemployment, all of that stuff is really good for the economy. And so
I voted for Trump.
Okay.
Yeah.
What about you?
I voted for Trump as well.
Okay. And what was the number one reason that led you to voting for Trump?
So I am honestly, I'm not really big on politics. I am a big Trump supporter based on how I was raised, obviously. So it's pretty much my upbringing and all that, yeah.
Gotcha.
Yeah, kind of same with me. Just the same conservative and Christian values.
Christian values.
And same with my parents. They kind of brought me into that.
I voted for Kamala Harris.
Okay. And can I ask you what?
It's going to be a long answer, okay?
Please.
So I honestly did not expect to vote for Kamala Harris.
Okay.
I was considering voting for either Jill Stein or the, I forget his name, but the Libertarian candidate. I ultimately voted for Kamala Harris because I believe that as a citizen and as a constituent, I would be in a better position to more or less cyberbully her administration into doing what they said that they were going to do. Primarily as regarding labor unions, as regards the conflict in Israel-Gaza, a few other issues like that. There are plenty of things on her platform that I disagreed with, but for the things that I supported, but I would be better positioned to hold that administration accountable to do the things they said they would do.
Somebody just told me they're from a generation where they don't speak about politics, they don't speak about how much they pay or anything else. And let's be real, because you're agreeing with the system of oppression, you're agreeing with the system of capitalism that exploits people. You're saying you don't want to speak about how much you get paid because you know the women, the people of color, the black people are probably getting paid less than you. And if you tell them, it's a revolt. You don't want to speak about politics because you know the people you're voting for are inherently oppressive. It's only a divisive issue if the person that you're voting for is dividing. So when people don't want to tell me who they voted for, I know they're voting for Trump. Why don't you want me to tell you voted for Trump? Well, maybe because he's a rapist, he's a racist, and he's a sexist. And I mean, every other ist and whatever in the book too. But let's just be real. Not speaking about the things that have the most value in life, like how much you get paid and who you vote for. Why be secretive? Because we're trying to stop something from happening. And that's knowledge, education. And that's, like I said, ignorance leads to oppression. And that's another form of it. Conservatives say we're self-righteous as progressives, and low-key, they're right. I think we have to be careful that we're not applying this elitist standard on morality, right? And bear with, just like stick with me here. As progressives, we think that we have a high moral standard, a high moral ground, that one that's inclusive, one that's expansive, one that's empowering. And while I do agree, and while I think this level of morality is good, and I think it's correct, that's what they think on the flip side, right? And I think if we want people to, believe in racism or push, against, if we want people to be anti-racist or to be feminist or pro-queer, we have to make sure that we're communicating in a way that actually delivers the message. Because what is the point of saying the message if no one is hearing you? If it's only traveling your echo chamber, right? When I'm talking and interviewing countless people, I think the only way that I've seen people accept my line of thinking is by allowing them space to understand and exist. And that's not going to happen if we're pushing so hard, because what it shows is an elitism of mind, this elitism of morality, this elitism of intelligence. And that's why countless people voted for Trump. Because while he is a bigot, he spoke to people in the way that they heard. And I don't think we're doing that. And that's the problem. I'm a quarter way through the trip, been interviewed 3 universities completely. I really went into this trip thinking that religion would play a very predominant role in guiding people's ideologies. And I think I've seen it even more, right? I was at Liberty University a little while ago, and I saw how much Christian nationalism, the idea that like it's Christianity over anything, played a role in people's ideologies. And here in Texas, like, you see it seep through like every facet, whether it's like your beliefs on queerness, if it should be taught, how it should be taught, if it should be legalized. Like all of those things have been playing a role in people's ideologies. And I feel like the thing I've learned most up to this point is first that people's religion, being Christianity, influences a lot. But I think what's been interesting to me is I've been able to point out a lot of contradictions in people's thought processes. How using their religion inconsistently has been applied. A lot of people are anti-queerness or anti-gay marriage or whatever because of their religion. But when I asked them how they feel that the next president of the United States and the person they voted for is a convicted rapist, they qualify it with, well, the economy will be better. And so my question is, in which ways and in which inconsistencies are you applying your